Good morning, everybody. You're going to hear the birds in the background because it's really early, but I think it's a nice backdrop. Okay, so after looking at the very short version of the deposition of Terry Hobbs, we're going to have a look at a few other things leading up to the charts and some maps and some other things that I found out. So, for those that don't know the case, the West Memphis 3 case, is very high profile. These three young boys, Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers and Michael Moore, were found murdered on Robin Hood Hill in this area. You'll see that more in the videos. And this person, Damien Eccles, and two other men, Jesse Miss Kelly and Jason Baldwin, were arrested with no evidence at all. And basically, Damien Eccles was into Metallica and wearing black, as you could see. You know, he's just a normal guy. And it was classed as a satanic murder. It was in the 90s when satanic murders were everything. Everyone thought every murder was satanic. And if we have a look at all these things that are to do with Satan, these are the doorways to demonic possession, heavy metal, goth culture, levitation, firewalking, Kabbalah, astral protection, New Age religions, palmistry, tarot cards. Oh, there we go, astrology. I'm a demon. So Damien Eccles was into Wiccan, magic, and all other different things. Earth worship, Wicca, all of these things. Divination, meditation, Eastern religions, the works. So that's why he got arrested. And the other two were arrested because they were his friends. Okay, so the boys were found in Robin Hood Hills in Arkansas, West Memphis. The three other boys, two of them they went through a whole trial. You'll see in my video that there's places to go where you can get transcripts of everything. Jason Baldwin and Jesse Miss Kelly got life, and Damien Eccles got the death penalty, and he spent 20 years in isolation. Now, they were released in 2011 under what's called an Alford plea, which enabled them to go free if they admitted guilt, which is crazy. So they had to admit that they were guilty in order to walk free. Now, the only reason a state does anything like that, and you can look at the governors and the DA and everybody for this type of thing, Scott Ellington especially, and Asia Hutchinson, and the list goes on, it would have cost $60 million or more to pay out the boys if they had been exonerated. So that was never going to happen, and it's never going to happen because they are not going to want to pay that money. Okay, so Terry Hobbs, obviously this is focused towards the suspect, and we can't deny that he's been a suspect throughout this whole thing. Now, something that we need to really have a look at here is that he said his alibi was he was with David Jacoby at 6 or 6:30, looking for the boys, and a ton of other people. Now, that is absolutely untrue. As we'll see here, David Jacoby has stated that they played guitar for an hour at 5:30. Hobbs left Jacoby's house by himself at 6 and 6:30, and then returned back to his house at 7 or 7:30. So what happened in this time? That's what we're going to be having a look at. We're also going to be having a look at the stepfather's natal chart and see what's going on there. Okay, Okay, so this is a crime scene drawing of the area. Here is Robin Hood Hill. The Blue Beacon truck was behind it. Their bodies were found right out the front here. 1, 2, and 3 there. So this is Robin Hood Hill, and this is the area that apparently Terry Hobbs and a whole bunch of other people went into 4 or 5 times. And my dog just told us that that was a lie, I think. Now it's a bit blurry because it's small. You can still see. Their bikes were discovered where this pole is here, where you can walk across, and they were in the water in here. So there's just the tree lining is just right here. So when he just said woods and scrub in the deposition, was he talking about just this little bit before here? Because it seems that this wasn't crossed, or was it? Okay, moving on. This is the stepfather's natal chart, and it is accurate, very accurate. Now, I just want you to note 29 degrees, the sun in 29 of Taurus, the moon at 29 of Gemini, Pluto at 29 of Leo, Chiron at 22 of Aquarius. Now you're going to see that that's very important later. And his Mars and part of Fortune is at 17 Pisces, which you're going to see is very important in the mapping. Okay, so he's got these very critical degrees. Now, the 29 degree Aquarius Saturn in the 8-10 chart would be squaring his sun in the 7th house if it was placed here. So it is a perfect position for the perpetrator, being a Taurus as he is, to move forward with what he did. And 29 degrees of Leo is on the MC, and he has his Pluto at 29 degrees of Leo. Say no more. There's definitely some matches there. Okay, you're going to see now the rest of my theory of what happened and some real evidence. So let's get into it. So here is a map of West Memphis. Now we're not focusing on the astrology at the moment, but here is West Memphis. Let's go out a little bit. It's more centered here. So West Memphis Airport's over here. It goes over to here, and we'll go out even further. Marion's up there, Tennessee's over here. So we've got this area here. So let's have a look in miles, how big roughly West Memphis is. Okay, the area that anyone searching the entire of West Memphis would have to cover at the very least 35 square miles of land. Okay, that's a lot of land for someone to search in just a small period of time. I think you'd all agree. So not only that, I mean, look how many streets we have. We've got Stevie's house here. So Stevie's house is here. Terry Hobbs and Pam lived there. South Macaulay Drive. This is very well known, all documented. You can find everything at callahan.mysite.com, so I'm not releasing private information. then Christopher and Michael Moore live across the road from each other up here. But look how many streets we've got here. So Mr. Hobbs says that he went down every single street. I mean, I'm sure there's a route, you probably go this way or whatever. But then let's start going out a bit further. Okay, there's a lot of places. There's some bayous and whatnot. And then he decides that he'll go and have a look over the main road to Robin Hood Hill here, over this bayou diversion area near a car wash, which used to be over here. It's changed now, obviously. So instead of searching between his house and here and all around here, which he says he did do, he also said that he searched the entire of West Memphis, and that circle's gone, but as I've said, it's...
This is David Jacoby running from our camera. The victim's parents in the West Memphis 3 case think he is one of 4 people involved in the killings. I caught up with him as he was making a fast exit outside. Why does Mark Byers think that you have some sort of involvement here?
I don't know. He's pointed his fingers at several people, and I don't blame him. I mean, I'd be looking for the ones who killed one of my kids.
But why does he blame? Why does he look at you? So why do the victim's parents think he is involved?
I'm not accusing anyone. I'm simply showing the evidence that is in the prosecutor's own file.
Ken Swindle represents Pam Hicks and Mark Byers. Their 8-year-old boys, Stevie Branch and Christopher Byers, along with Michael Moore, were murdered back in May 1993. Swindle wanted a judge to allow the victims' parents to see physical evidence in the case. The judge said no. It was a big disappointment to Jason Baldwin, one of the so-called West Memphis 3, who went to prison, then was freed 18 years later.
The case isn't over with. No one's given up on searching for who actually committed the crimes. And, those families, Mark and everybody, our families, we all deserve to know the truth of what happened.
When the judge denied the request for parents to see the evidence, Swindle immediately asked the judge to reconsider and dropped a bombshell. A document naming 4 new people it claims these 4 people are the real killers of the West Memphis 8-year-old boys.
L.G. Hollingsworth, Buddy Lucas, Terry Hobbs, and David Jacoby. We're not just grabbing names out of the air. We are pulling out names from the prosecutor's own file.
Mark Byers got emotional in court about the new finding and even pointed out David Jacoby to us.
And one of the guilty parties was standing in this room today.
Why was your hair found at the crime scene? You just made
They said close to the crime scene, and because at one time I did walk near where they'd found the kids with Terry Hobbs, his father-in-law, and his wife, and there was a few other people there. But, I didn't wear hats back then. My hair could have blown around anywhere.
The judge is expected to make a decision on this new document Monday. We'll keep you posted. Andrew Douglas, Action News 5.
All right, well, if you would like to see that document, the new filing for the case, you can find it on our...
So this is the declaration of David Jacoby in 2009. Sometime between 5 and 5:30, Terry Hobbs came over to my house. I believe I saw Terry's stepson, Stevie Branch, ride by on his bike in the street in front of my house. I also believe I saw 2 other little boys with Stevie. One of the other boys who went by the front of my house was on a bicycle and the other was on a skateboard. Between approximately 6 and 6:30, Terry got up from playing guitar and told me that he was going to his house to see if Stevie was home. Terry was gone from my house for a while. Terry returned to my house later and asked if Stevie had come by. Terry and I drove around the neighbourhood for approximately 10 to 15 minutes. That's all, searching for Stevie. Terry then dropped me off at my house and said he was going to check a few other places. After a while, Terry drove back to my house. I again went with Terry to ride around and look for Stevie. We drove 2 more times, nearly the same route we'd driven before. Terry again took me home and dropped me off because it was getting dark and I was going to get change clothes and get flashlights to search further. I do not know where Terry went, and I expected him to come back to get me. Excuse me. I changed clothes, but Terry never showed back up. I was not in Robin Hood Hills Woods searching for Stevie or other missing children alone with Terry Hobbs or near 6 p.m. or 6:30. Additionally, I recall that I was not looking for Stevie or the other boys near the woods until it was already dark, much later than 6 or 6:30. And there's a picture of John Douglas having a chat with him and him crying because his whole alibi fell apart. Now, whether David Jacoby was involved, and it's a whole nother story with the 2 other boys, but this is very telling and wrecks Terry's alibi. The 5th of the 5th, 93, at 3:30 p.m. was the last time he was seen, according to this document. Now, we've since found out that there was a sighting, but that was years later because the police didn't do a door-to-door. They didn't ask anybody anything. And later on it came out that somebody had actually seen them later, but 3:30 is interesting to note. It's written down, it's a police document. It's always something that we need to look at carefully when we're doing astrology. So having a look at the 3:30 chart, I'm just going to bring it up here. So this is 3:30 for the 5th. Now, it's different than the other ones, obviously. We have Virgo on the ascendant. Now, they were leaving, Steve Branch was leaving school at this time. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is school. The 3rd house is uncannily ruled by Scorpio, which becomes the ascendant at the bad time, with Pluto in there. We've got 22 degrees on the ascendant, 22 Pisces on the descendant, that 29 Saturn, the 18-degree part of fortune sitting just below the DC, 18 of Pisces. So keeping in mind that this Saturn is at 29 degrees Aquarius, by the way. So let's keep in mind all these points here, 22, 29, 18, and Aquarius and Pisces. Now, here's the map. And these are exact addresses. So, from Stevie's house to Michael Moore's house, now they live across the road. Christopher Byers is here, Michael Moore's there. The line that goes from his house to his friends is 329 degrees, 29 degrees Aquarius, that Saturn line. Okay, from that point on, when they joined together, even if all 3 did, they would have been in this area. It went to the place where they were found, and that is 352 degrees, or 22 degrees of Pisces. The descendant is 22 degrees of Pisces at 3:30. It's a portent of things to come, showing us that their body's going to be found at 22 degrees of Pisces. But not only that, it shows us the route from Steve Branch's house to the other boys, to the location where they end up. And that's on this 3:30 chart. Not only that, it puts DNA and the sun in the 8th house with that Mercury there that was not good. Mercury's ruling the ascendant, so it's the boys, so there's a few of them, they're in the neighbourhood, but they're going to go off and have fun. It's not going to result in fun because it ends up in the 8th house of death here, as it does again later on in the evening. So it's very interesting to note that the map is very specific that way. And if we draw a line straight from Stevie's house to where they were found, that's 346 degrees, which is 16 degrees of Pisces, which is very close to this part of fortune here. So there's another conjunction exactly to the map. Now, I mean, this isn't showing us who did it or anything like that, but it's showing us that we've got a set of maps that are pretty accurate here. So this 330 chart is the beginning, and it shows us an awful lot. So let's have a look at the end chart, or a couple of others, just quickly, and see if anything else matches this area. So this is another one of the charts that I brought up before, obviously, and it's just sort of, I need to reiterate that 29 Saturn Aquarius, which went directly from Steve Branch's house to Michael Moore's house, edging towards the IC, is very reminiscent of his movement towards his house and then their movement towards their death. So, so that's just, it's important to note that. Sorry, there's some kids playing on the street, which is always a nice sound. Okay, so this is Robin Hood Hills. Now, it's different because this is taken in 2019, I think, and there was more stuff around it, but this is generally how big it is. So if we do a little square around, well, here, that's 25 square acres. So if he went, no, that's not squared acres. It's 20 acres all up. So there would have only been a little area that he would have gone into, or anyone would have gone into, and it would have been understandable if they weren't found because they were up here. But they were right here. Well, actually, they were in the river, so they were here. That line still goes there. But okay, so I've moved that line out there. That didn't mean anything anyway. It wasn't going out any particular degrees. It was about a mile, it seemed. So this line, as you'll see, will go straight there. So it's the same line, same degree. In fact, I can... Oh, okay, it's not going to let me move something. Well, irrespective of that, the boys were found just here. So, I mean, where do you go into this area and say, well, that's too far, or I'm too scared, or, you know, let's see what we can see here. It really looks nothing like it did. I don't know where the river crossing is. Oh, maybe here. But anyway, they were found in a dirty ditch. But even if you walked in, just if you parked here, see this car here could have just went, and then walked along there and they would have been found, you know. So this theory of his that he looked at Robin Hood Hills, you know, 4 or 5 times and saw nothing, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's just weird to me. And why would you say that you've seen the whole of, you went and looked around the whole of West Memphis and then specifically went to that one little area but decided not to cover the whole thing? It does not make any sense. Okay, let's change it up a bit here. So for those of you that like looking into this case and haven't seen this page, callahan.mysite.com, callahan.mysite.com. It has everything, and I mean everything. It will take months or years to go through, and it has. My lovely friend Scott Daly and I have been through this page so many times. He's been through it, I reckon, probably 20 times more than me. You can find out anything on anybody all evidence, interviews, etc. Everything is on this site. So I'll just show you what it looks like here. Just very basic. You can look through chronological order, trial transcripts, all the documents, photos. Be wary of photos. There's some horrible things. But I highly recommend looking through that. Don't just take all this on face value, really look into it, because this case is so convoluted. And I mean, I know it's old and it needs to be laid to rest. I mean, I still have contact with the family of the victims, the Hicks family, and they'll never ever get over this. They will never get over this. And I run a group on Facebook, a support group for the West Memphis 3, that people join every single day. People are still interested and want to know what's going on. And there's something that I can tell you, and that's that Terry Hobbs is just sitting pretty and hasn't. I mean, that deposition I've showed you before, that's a very small part of the depot. It goes for hours and hours and hours, and that's on Vimeo, so you can see every part of that as well. You should watch it. I mean, I pointed out the lies as much as I could, but it makes you just go, what on earth is going on when something like that can happen, and you can just get away with it. And this happened in 1993. It's so long ago now. Sadly, I think all the charts have shown me that the case isn't going to be resolved. I mean, Saturn at 29 also shows us that this is a long, long, long process, and Terry Hobbs himself has Saturn at 29 degrees, and the Sun and Venus too. He's got a lot of 29 degrees in his chart, so it means that everything can wait until the end of his life, and then even still, he won't say anything. So he won't know, don't know, can't remember forever, sadly.